Hi folks, Dr. Ditchek. It's Sunday, July 12th. I hope everybody had a good Shabbos and is having a good weekend. Continuing our educational forum on COVID and other healthcare matters. I'm happy to see that this forum has become a great educational tool for so many and a great area opening up this discussion and often debate, which is a good thing. That's what happens in the scientific world. These things are debate. And that's how scientists and physicians view these problems, especially for a new disease like COVID, where we are all learning about a new disease. This textbook is being written as we speak, and we have a lot more to learn. We're really only at the beginning of our educational capabilities with COVID. I heard tonight from a very interesting young man, a Dr. David Feigenbaum from Penn in Philadelphia, who has developed a Corona database for off-label use of drugs for treating COVID. Over 200 drugs being used around the world. He's created this very, very fluent database where he looks at the drug that's being used, the benefits, the disadvantages, the timing. We've spoken about many of these drugs on this forum, which is why I found it so interesting. Colchicine, which is a gout medicine, famotidine, which is Pepcid, dexamethasone, which is a steroid, Lipitor, which is a statin drug to reduce cholesterol. So all of these drugs are now being used or trying to be used off-label until we have a better option like a vaccine or a single drug that can treat this disease. Even certain cough medicines, antitussives, are being looked at for their antiviral properties. But what he spoke about, and I thought was very fascinating, was when you're using off-label drugs, the benefit of the drug is almost always linked to the timing of when it's given, and we've spoken about it as well. For instance, when remdesivir, which is a drug that was previously had different uses, now it's being used for COVID. Now it is FDA approved, so it's no longer off-label, but it was when we started using it. When it's used on patients who are on ventilators, there was virtually no benefit. But when it was used on patients prior to that point where they were ventilated, they did receive some benefit from the remdesivir. Dexamethasone, similar story. When you give dexamethasone to somebody who hasn't yet reached the point where they require supplemental oxygen, they actually did worse with dexamethasone. But if they're already on oxygen or they're on a ventilator, they benefited from the dexamethasone. So the lesson is you can't just jump into giving these drugs. If you're a layperson especially, and you get sick with COVID, you shouldn't run out and buy dexamethasone or buy famotidine or buy any of these drugs to start on your own, because if you give it during the wrong timing of the infection, you can actually cause harm. Another off-label drug, which Dr. Feigenbaum spoke about, is the study that I'll be running with Dr. Canigliaro shortly on outpatient use of famotidine, which we've now completed our IRB. We're completing our final stages of funding for the study, and we hope to be up and running by August for the outpatient use of Pepcid or famotidine to keep patients out of the hospital. That's another off-label use. So until we have a great vaccine or a single drug that can cure this disease, we need to rely on these off-label drugs. That's the takeaway lesson that we're learning. I wanted to speak a little bit about what's going on in Florida and Arizona. I did speak to a number of my colleagues in the last 48 hours. I had a friend who actually was part of our COVID group who lost his father on Shabbos morning to COVID in Florida, his 84-year-old dad. Unfortunately, the ICUs are very busy in Florida now. They had a record number of cases yesterday, over 15,200 new COVID infections documented in Florida, with a large spike in hospitalizations and a very significant increase in the death rate right now. Arizona is slightly behind Florida, but also increasing as well. So we have to send out our prayers and daven that those people in those states get through the next few weeks with minimal catastrophe. Unfortunately, they're struggling right now, and we really have to daven for them at this point. They are getting a tremendous amount of resources. I want to speak briefly about the issue that caused so much discussion, the issue of reinfection, because some people misinterpret the information, some people misuse it, and some people are simply scared by hearing about it. As you know, I referred two patients who had a strong likelihood after being re-exposed to developing a new COVID infection after several months of having antibodies. Not only did I refer to the Mount Sinai group that's running the research study now, but my colleague in Crown Heights, Dr. Rosen, referred several patients as well under the same research protocol to Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai is actually studying the possibility of reinfections. This is part of a national effort now to study those possibilities. It's a very important aspect of COVID to study because it does have to do with vaccine development. It has to do with how we plan for the next few months vis-a-vis our hospitals. And it has to do with our push to get the off-label drugs approved so we have tools in the event that we do see reinfections. It's extremely important to realize that when we suspect a reinfection, we don't make any assumptions. We refer it to the experts who are best able to evaluate the information. If you live here in New York, and if you're a physician or if you're not a physician and you think you know of a case of possible reinfection, those cases should be referred immediately to the group at Mount Sinai, the virology team that is running that research study. If any of you need assistance finding access to the virology study for reinfection going on at Mount Sinai, please private message me or email me. My office email address is ipaofny@gmail.com. And just email me and I will refer your physician directly to, or yourself, to the Mount Sinai Virology Research Program that they're running now to look at those possibilities. It's very important that we study this here in the United States. The issue is being studied actively in Singapore and China. Apparently, China is about to report over 100 cases of documented reinfection. Singapore, I don't know what their numbers are yet, but they're also planning on reporting very soon. We don't know anything about the Chinese or the Singapore data yet, other than they are developing that data. So please don't misinterpret when we refer somebody for further studies and to help solve a puzzle. This shouldn't be a cause of concern to any single individual. It should be recognized that this is the lens we're going through to solve the COVID immunity puzzle. We need to know about these cases. They need to be investigated properly, and no assumptions should be made about immunity by anybody right now. The greatest scientists in the country and certainly throughout the world are trying to solve the immunity puzzle, which will help us develop a better vaccine. So it's important, if you have any suspected cases of reinfection, have your physician, or you can contact me through the office email, and we will refer you directly to the Mount Sinai research group that is currently studying this problem, the virology group at Mount Sinai. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about vaccines and vaccine development. There's some new information. I think it's important for us to, start thinking about that, hopefully. And I hope to see you again tomorrow. And again, I thank everybody for being such great and active participants in this forum and other forums. It's exciting for me. I've been involved in education, parenting education, physician education for years, and I enjoy the interaction, but I've never enjoyed it as much as this particular interaction, because we're learning about a new disease that all of us have been thrown into and thrust into, and it's critical that we learn about this disease as quickly as possible so we can save more lives in the near future. That's it for tonight. I hope you all have a great evening, and I wish you well.